One building, over 5 businesses, and a history of highs and lows. Starting in the late 1880s, the A.F Henckel building currently sits as a storage unit, threatening to further collapse. With a long history as the Rex Windmill Company, Syracuse Screen and Grill, Syracuse Cabinet, Brooder, Wabash Valley Milk Products, Miller's Woodcraft Shop, and finally A.F Henckel. We'll dive into the history of each in the building as it sits now. Before A.F Henckel was known as A.F Henckel, before the building was even up, our story started in 1886 with a man named Fred Baker. In 1886, Baker patented a windmill which Manchester history describes as having, quote, an eccentric gearing action, unquote. Not so long after obtaining this patent, Baker went on to form a company to produce these windmills. Soon following came the building known as the A.F Henckel building. But the story of the Rex Windmill Company was far from over. During this time, the company was booming, but there was a slight issue. Many of the stockholders were searching for high-paying jobs within the company, but required low effort. While stockholders searched for jobs, beneath their noses came one of their biggest trials. A salesman, whose name is lost to time, ventured into Michigan where they found a market rich with customers. Many farmers in Michigan had grown tired of pumping their own water, and with the use of windmills, this would help alleviate their issues. Using this, the salesman was able to gain enough notes to pay off the commission on his balance. Notes, a form of IOUs, were an integral part of the Rex Windmill Company, but a part that would ultimately lead to its downfall. In the meantime, company accountant Malin Butterball sold Rex's Windmill Company to a pair of brothers on June 25, 1891. Under the Huet brothers' leadership, the company fell in hard times in 1892 and 1893. The company had been promoting, discounting, and endorsing their notes at various banks, so when the notes became next to worthless, the company received a major gut punch. Struggling with money, the company quickly exhausted the remaining cash on hand. To further complicate things, during this time, the company was fighting a large and lengthy legal battle. The conflict arose when Rex sold the right to a man from Avila to make one of their mills. This was before they had completed their patent application, but after it was completed, the man from Avila had sold his business to a company under the name Flint and Wallings, who began producing the mill. But the man from Avila had no authority to sell the rights to produce the mill, leading to a 2-year legal battle, where in the end, Flint and Wallings agreed to cease the manufacture of the mill and pay a $2 royalty fee for each mill produced after the patent went into effect. While some may have considered this a victory, with the collapsing value of notes, stockholders began to panic. This caused a surge of stockholders attempting to offload their stocks on unsuspecting individuals, which years later still left a sour feeling in many. The company, under the helm of the Huet brothers, was moved to the old Excelsior factory before closing on December 13th of 1894. Years following, on July 30th of 1898, a large storm would hit North Manchester, blowing an end off the A.F Henckel building. While it is unspecified how the building was repaired, it was decided on April 25th of 1900 that Syracuse Screen and Grill would occupy the building. 6 years after the closure of Rex's windmills, Syracuse Screen and Grill, headed by David C. Lamb, moved into the former Rex Windmill building. As mentioned in their name, Syracuse produced screen and grills, 2 items that had fallen out of fashion even by the 1950s. Screens were made of 3 panels. Each panel included 3/4-inch curtain rods which held cloth. Depending on the price of the screen, the quality and design ranged from bland to elegant. Grills, on the other hand, were wooden frames filled with spindles, balls, and other designs that hung above doorways. Quote, soon no well-regulated household was complete without a big cloth-covered screen in the living room to hide something or other, and ornamental wooden grills across 2 or 3 doorways, unquote. The output of these screens and grills quickly grew popular in demand. So popular, in fact, on March 26 of 1903, Syracuse ordered the construction of another building on the property. The 20 by 45 foot, 2-story building still stands beside the A.F Henckel building today. While the company appeared to be running smoothly, Changes in society's preferences, new technology, and workplace turmoil rocked Syracuse. Trouble arose when conflicts among managers led to a strike where 30 workers walked up and down Main Street in support of each other. More differences followed when two men, J.W. Caswell and Win Grunwin, came to the factory. The two had decided to lease a vacant building and move operations. During this time, screen and grills began to fall out of style, being replaced by radio cabinets, a cabinet used for storage of a radio and other items. In the end, the business was moved to the nearby city of Huntington, Indiana, bringing an end to Syracuse Screen and Grill's time in the building. It wouldn't be long for Syracuse Screen and Grill's shoes to be filled. In a strange coincidence, the building would be occupied by a company called Syracuse Cabinet, a completely unrelated venture. Brought to North Manchester in 1925, the company was headed by Max Dracoff. While Dracoff didn't originally have the capital to bring the company to North Manchester, with the persuasion of friends and the endorsement of notes by the locals, the business took off for a while. Syracuse Cabinet was well known for its cedar chest. This was during the time of the moth scare, where people were afraid of having their valuable clothes being eaten and destroyed by moths. Scientists of the time learned of an oil called Cedrus atlantica, which is produced by cedarwood trees and has moth-repelling properties. This caused a massive boom in demand for cedar chests, causing business to flourish for Syracuse Cabinet, until the moth scare began to fade. While the business was in troubled waters, Dracoff, originally educated as a rabbi, then in law, had diversified his business experience. Using his slick tongue, Dracoff managed to talk himself out of many predicaments. With this power, he convinced his sponsors to renew their notes, masking a false facade on a failing business. But one can only put a band-aid on a sinking ship till it has taken on enough water. Eventually, Dracoff was forced to close the business. Dracoff moved to the nearby city of Warsaw, Indiana, before being last heard of in Washington, D.C. with a job in Indian affairs. Around the time period of 1933 to 1934, Boyd Warner stumbled upon some small chickens shivering in the cold. And as the story goes, his sympathy grew so large, he founded Warner Brooder. This led to a man, Aidan Strauss, who had a love for fried chicken, to become interested in the business, causing the pair to open a factory in a small room on the south side of Main Street. Business quickly took off, and the pair realized they had outgrown their small room, leading them to purchase the old Syracuse building. They began with remodeling, adding a new roof, wooden floors being replaced with cement, and enlarging the boiler room for 2 boilers. After 9 years of successful business, the company decided in 1943 to purchase a new building, the former Northfield Furniture Building, run by the general manager, Albert F. Henckel. For the brief period after Warner Brooder, Wabash Valley Milk Products took control of the building. Headed by one Walter Page of New York, he ordered new boilers, but never managed to get the priorities for the required machinery. With the business struggling to get off the ground, Page sold the building to Albert F. Henckel. As mentioned, Albert F. Henckel previously was the general manager of the Northfield Company in North Manchester. During this period, the company's business was running smoothly and earned a nice profit, leading Henckel to pursue his own business, which he named after himself, quote, A.F. Henckel, Good Upholstered Furniture, the Trustworthy Line, unquote. The company continued producing furniture, even holding its own patents of davenports and chairs, but had a need for specific parts, leading Earl Miller in July of 1945 to open a woodworking shop in the Henckel building. Since Henckel Furniture was in desperate need of wooden frames, the opportunity was perfect. Miller also did a variety of other work during his time with Henckel. But after this point, the history on the A.F. Henckel building becomes fuzzy. The latest mention of the company comes from a 1954 Central High School yearbook, where Henckel is mentioned as a sponsor. The building itself was owned by Richard L. Cummings in 2003 before being sold off, where it is currently owned by H&S Metals. Former workers at the old Manchester foundry, where H&S Metals currently is, only vaguely remember the building being used for storage. leaving the past 65-ish years of the A.F Henckel building's history to be lost to time. Rex Windmill Company, Syracuse Screen and Grill, Syracuse Cabinet, Brooder, Wabash Valley Milk Products, Miller's Woodcraft Shop, and A.F Henckel all called the A.F Henckel building home at one point. The building currently sits vacant, only being used for storage, but it will continue to serve as a reminder of the people who spent their lives within its walls. A reminder of where we once stood. Thank you for watching, and good night.